Ladies and gentlemen, this is an article from the Sacramento Bee. Governor Gavin Newsom's former chief of staff arrested in Federal Bureau of Investigation public corruption probe. This is about a couple of hours ago. She is accused of using $250,000 for personal gain and writing off about $1 million or so. This is a federal indictment, which means that President Trump, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and the federal government is involved. This almost certainly implicates Governor Gavin Newsom in some way, but it doesn't help his presidential aspirations for a number of reasons. It could possibly derail a presidential campaign where almost certainly J.D. Vance would win in a landslide, but that's another story. Hit subscribe to this channel. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel. We'll talk about this on H.A. Goodman's other channel right after this live stream. To my super chat, thank you. I can't thank you enough. Let's get a quick rundown of this scandal ongoing. It's breaking news.
Powerful figures in all of California state politics, but today she was in a federal courtroom sitting before a judge in handcuffs. You have anything to say at all? Former Governor Gavin Newsom, Chief of Staff Dana Williamson, surrounded by reporters leaving the federal courthouse. The former high-ranking state government staffer facing federal charges of stealing from campaign funds, filing false tax returns, and illegally obtaining COVID-era PPP loans.
So again, these are all federal charges. Not really any there's no effort. There can't be any effort on a statewide level to cover this up. These are federal charges. And you have Pam Bondi at the Department of Justice, the Attorney General, Kash Patel, the Federal Bureau of Investigation Director. And you have, the IRS involved, the Federal Election, FEC, the IRS, and the FBI involved. So, again, it's important to note that if she does turn on Newsom, or let's say it's not Newsom she turns on, but people around him, this is pretty much the beginning of the end of a presidential campaign, potentially, like the Honorable James Comey says, potentially.
She did not answer questions as she stepped into her awaiting vehicle outside the courthouse steps. Prosecutors say she has not been cooperating. How would you respond to that?
I don't have any comment on that.
Her attorney also not answering questions about the bombshell investigation. Williamson is one of 5 co-conspirators in the indictment and the only one prosecutors say has not cooperated with investigators so far. Court documents show she used money from false tax returns on luxury items, including a $15,000 Chanel handbag, a $19,000 HVAC system, a $21,000 private jet charter, a $156,000 Mexico birthday celebration, and a $10,000 trip to a theme park.
She has limited options. She's going to want to jump on those.
Attorney Michael Weiss.
A birthday celebration that cost $156,000+. Okay. Was Newsom there? It's like, okay.
Is not connected to the case.
Tells me they did a thorough job and they wouldn't bring this kind of an allegation, especially given the potential political ramifications of this, if you will, or the undercurrent. It tells me that they were thorough and made sure that they dotted all their I's and crossed all their T's before they filed the indictment.
A federal indictment and a fall from grace for this one-time power figure in California state politics. Have you been cooperating with prosecutors? And prosecutors say that the campaign money that Williamson stole was from a dormant Javier Becerra campaign fund. Williamson pleaded not guilty to the charges against.
So that is so bizarre. A dormant Javier Becerra campaign fund. A dormant campaign fund. Why would it be dormant if the money from donors wasn't used for a specific? Why would the money still stay in this campaign fund? That's bizarre. But then he's linked to possibly servers in Congress years back. It's like all of these scandals in the most amusing way intersect or are connected in some way, shape, or form. But let's continue.
Today, she was released on $500,000 bail. She's due back in court on December 11th.
Unbelievable allegations in this one. We know you'll continue.
So let's find out more about what's going on.
Well, Lisa and Golston, we should start off by saying this is one of the most powerful and influential women in California politics. Governor Newsom's former chief of staff, Dana Williamson, just within the last hour and a half or so, left the federal courthouse here on a $500,000 bond facing serious allegations. She's accused of conspiring with Javier Becerra, who is currently a candidate for governor and the former U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary, conspiring with his chief of staff, Sean McCluskey, to take $225,000 from Becerra's political campaign account. Investigators say this happened between 2022 and 2024, which started before but continued while she was working for Governor Newsom. She faces 23 federal charges related to that, including wire fraud, bank fraud, obstruction of justice, and false tax documents. Williamson pleaded not guilty in court today. Her alleged co-conspirators, McCluskey and well-known Sacramento lobbyist Greg Campbell, have plea deals, according to court records. In a statement, Javier Becerra said, quote, "The news today of formal accusations of impropriety by a long-serving trusted advisor are a gut punch. I have voluntarily cooperated with the U.S. Department of Justice in their investigation and will continue to do so as California's former Attorney General. I fully comprehend the importance of allowing this investigation and legal process to run its course through our justice system." We did approach Ms. Williamson as she exited the courthouse today. Here's our exchange with her and her attorney.
So this is very bizarre. These allegations, the investigation started, I believe, in 2022 or 2023. So long before President Trump was elected president. That's number one. Number two, it's very interesting how his chief of staff, these 23 counts, it's interesting that, or it would be quite bizarre that Newsom is completely, has absolutely no knowledge or has nothing to do with any of this. But let's continue.
Should other California officials and people involved in the government be concerned now with this investigation underway?
Do you have any comment, Ms. Williamson?
No, you guys can contact my attorney.
Do you have anything to say at all?
Ms. Williamson, do you have anything to say to Javier Becerra right now? No. He called this a gut punch.
Cooperating with prosecutors?
No lies.
Ms. Williamson, you have nothing to say with the 23 counts against you, alleging that you and co-conspirators funneled money from Javier Becerra's campaign.
Okay, thank you guys. I just said, please, you guys can contact my attorney for a statement.
You have nothing to say to the people of California, Ms. Williamson. Should Governor Gavin Newsom be concerned, Ms. Williamson? Should Governor Gavin Newsom be concerned? There's nothing else with the 23 charges. Should other government officials in California, other people associated with the government, be concerned here?
Sorry, I have no comment on that. Thank you.
This is a big case, sir. A lot of people could be involved. Dana Williamson was a very powerful person in California's government. There's nothing you can share at this moment.
Sorry.
Can you say when we might have an update or something from you?
It won't be from me. It'll be from her.
Well, she just referred. Okay, so yeah. You won't be her counsel?
There's somebody above me.
Now, we should note Governor Gavin Newsom at this moment, from what we know, is not involved in this case. A spokesperson for his office said, quote, "While we are still learning details of the allegations, the governor expects all public servants to uphold the highest standards of integrity." Now, I did ask the governor's office if this is the reason why Williamson left his office last year in November of 2024. His spokesman confirming tonight that she was put on leave when she notified them that she was under criminal investigation. Reporting live here in downtown Sacramento, Ashley Zavala, KCRA 3 News.
Yeah.
So that was an example of amazing journalism right there. Let's continue.
According to prosecutors, Dana Williamson diverted something like $225,000 from an inactive political campaign to an associate's personal use from 2022 to 2024, which is right around the same time she worked for the governor. Prosecutors also say she claimed more than $1 million in business deductions for things like traveling on private planes, luxury hotel stays, home furnishings, designer handbags, and more. A spokesperson for Governor Newsom tells us in a statement Williamson is no longer serving in his administration. And
so I believe she left in December of 24. So, a year ago or so, almost a year ago, but it's like she was with him for years and years.
That the governor expects all public servants to uphold the highest standards of integrity. Our Chief Justice correspondent Kelly O'Donnell is following this one for us. Kelly, what's going on here? What do we know and how did this develop?
Well, this looks like kind of old-fashioned political corruption allegations, where Dana Williamson is among 5 people who are accused of funneling money from what was a dormant political campaign account. And we don't know which candidate is associated with that. And doing things like paying expenses, giving one of the co-conspirators a no-show job where a spouse gets paid, but there's no work involved. She has
So AOC's campaign was accused of that years back.
Has not worked for Governor Newsom since last year, but obviously there are political overtones, and obviously his picture is what we see on camera, and so he will have to some degree answer for these issues. But this investigation began 3 years ago, so it is not of just this moment with the Trump administration or the DOJ. So it's been going on for a long time, and it involved IRS investigators and so forth. And it also includes some of the PPP loans from the COVID era, where people recall that you would get payments made, and that if you met certain requirements, those loans were forgiven. That's part of the allegation as well. So these are alleged financial crimes that are considered serious, with a big jail penalty possible. If it goes that way, she was arrested this morning and has a court date today.
Okay, I know you've been watching it all. Kelly O'Donnell.
So, not good for Newsom's campaign, and I don't see any chance of Newsom beating J.D. Vance, like zero chance. On a national level, Democrats lost in a landslide in 24. They won in Virginia and in New Jersey, but New Jersey's a blue state and Virginia's purple, but the Democrats are very powerful. The Democratic Party is very powerful in Virginia. So that wasn't a barometer of what people want nationwide. Zoran Mamdani, his win in New York is probably the worst thing in terms of a presidential contest that you would want. The Democrats they won't be talking about Mamdani in 2028. They won't want to talk about it because it's likely, I hope he's successful. God bless the people of New York. Very likely his policies, his socialist policies, are not going to work. They didn't work in the Soviet Union. City-run grocery stores, that's not a good idea. That was tried by the Soviets. Didn't work out at all. There were lines for one brand of mayonnaise. And then the supermarkets went out of business. But anyway, the point is, this is really bad for Newsom. Hit subscribe if you're new.
Newsom had a message, sir, for his fellow Democrats after this shutdown deal.
Sounds like some of my colleagues and friends in the United States Senate, some of my Democratic colleagues, just decided that we're playing by the old set of rules, not the new set of rules, and may have rolled over a little bit. Right now, we've got to hold the line, because I think America will become unrecognizable in a year or two unless we fight back.
So his speech pattern, his style of communication style, it's kind of like Clint Eastwood meets I don't know. It's trying to be tough and rugged, but too slick and too, I don't know, slimy. I don't know. He has this kind of, this kind of tough, but also suave and debonair type of. It's not genuine. It's not going to work on a national, for a presidential election. It'll work in California, but anything will work in California. It's a one-party state. People are leaving California. Most Americans don't want their state to look like New York or California. So this is not going to resonate throughout the country. It'll be interesting to see, because Democrats don't have an actual primary. So they just choose a candidate. And you saw Biden won his primary. So it'll be interesting to see if the Democrats choose, forget the will of the voters because Biden won his primary. It'll be interesting to see who they cheat for within their own primary. They don't have functioning primaries. So it's interesting. Will they think Newsom has the momentum even after this scandal and everything that California's been through the past, couple of years under his watch? But anyway, let's continue.
He wants to fight harder, and he thinks the Democrats aren't fighting hard enough against you and, of course, the Republicans, Gavin Newsom.
I knew Gavin for 4 years. I got along great with him, but he's gone radical left. And, he's building a train system from San Francisco to L.A. that's got about a 2,000 or 3,000% cost overruns. The worst thing I've never seen anything like it. I've seen cost overruns. I've never seen anything like that. If you take a look at what he's done, so they lost 25,000 houses. Do you know they haven't issued one building permit yet? So these people are trying to rebuild their houses. Malibu. But he did something. Mm-hmm. He did something even worse than that. He's now taking a big section of Palisades or some area, and he's going to build low-income housing where they used to have luxury housing. He's going to put low-income housing in. His fire stuff is out of control. The forests are burning down all over the place. And honestly, I always liked him, but he's a horrible governor. He's a horrible governor. If he ran the country like that, we would have an absolutely gonzo country. This country would be gone. The fact is, if I weren't president, if Kamala got in, you wouldn't have, not only wouldn't you have $20 trillion coming in, you would have money leaving, and your welfare system. Take a look at some of the welfare things that we're talking about. They've doubled, tripled, and quadrupled since I left office.
SNAP benefits have
well, SNAP has gone from like $7 billion to many times $7 billion. And, people keep talking about SNAP. But SNAP is supposed to be if you're down and out, you really, really have. That's what the purpose of it. People are getting, they walk in and they get it automatically now. So the number is many times what it should be. It's disgraceful.
Can we change
You
that?
wouldn't have been able, I'll tell you what. This country would have been busted, 100% busted, within 5 months into a new administration if I didn't win.
Can we reform SNAP and these benefits so they're used for the people who really need them?
It's meant for people. And you know what it does is it really puts the country at jeopardy. People that need it have to get it. I'm all for it. But people that are able-bodied can do a job. They leave their job because they figure they can pick this up. It's easier. That's not the purpose of it.
So knives are out, it looks like, for Chuck Schumer. Ro Khanna is already calling for him to be replaced. What message do you have for Schumer tonight?
Well, I think he made a mistake in going too far.
Going too far, or how?
He just went too far. He thought he could break the Republicans, and the Republicans broke him. But he did think that we have good policy, they have bad policy. And there's something, I don't know if it's Trump derangement or are they just crazed. They're like crazed lunatics.
It's Trump derangement, and they don't really stand for anything. They fancy themselves that, they said, oh, well, what about the poor and SNAP and for the children? They wanted to keep the shutdown going. Democrats wanted to keep the shutdown going without funding it. They wanted to keep it going, and they're upset that Democrats caved to now fund the government, while they say that Republicans have no heart.
But, we have just great policy. We have good people. They have some good people, too. I know a lot of Democrats. They're not all crazy. They're not all. But you have some that are absolutely terrible. I look at this Crockett. This is a very low IQ person. And I look at somebody that comes from Somalia, where they don't have anything. They don't have police, they don't have military, they don't have anything. All they have is crime. And she comes in and tells us how to run our country. The Constitution says this, the Constitution. The whole thing is crazy. I feel badly because I've known Chuck Schumer. I knew him when he was a person who loved Israel, and now he's a Palestinian. He's become a Palestinian. And it's amazing. I've never seen a politician change so much. Also, he doesn't have, he was a pretty talented guy. He's lost his talent.
Chicago Mayor, your dear friend Brandon Johnson, is calling on the United Nations to investigate what he calls the abusive immigration crackdowns in the city by your ICE officers and so forth. The UN in Chicago? What is your message to him?
Well, look, number one, he's got a 4% approval rating. You have people in Chicago, beautiful black women wearing a MAGA hat, red MAGA hat. Please come, Mr. Trump, President. They call me President. They call me Mr. They can call me whatever they want. Please come, President Trump. Please come to. They're begging us to come.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey.
So the Democratic Party is in constant freefall. The thing that's propping them up is media. Late night, Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel is one of the pillars of the Democratic Party, which says something about Democrats in this day and age. It's not about free speech with him, by the way. There's no way to prove, and there's no evidence to state that Kimmel or his writers or producers or anyone around him are committing campaign finance violations. But if there's almost, it's very logical and rational to speculate that if he devotes every single day of the past 10 years to disparaging and demeaning Trump and Republicans, and he is connected overtly to the Democratic Party. He was at that function with Biden and George Clooney, and he's at every Democratic Party function and fundraiser, or a lot of them at least. It's not freedom of speech, for example, and this is one of the points. If Democrats didn't have all of media, like the entire media narrative, including Hollywood, they would cease to be an actual functioning political party. They'd lose nationwide, even in Virginia and New Jersey. They already have all these advantages, although these advantages are dissipating every single year. Most people don't trust media. They don't care about Hollywood anymore. But the point is, if Democrats didn't have late night, Kimmel, Stephen Colbert, John Oliver, Seth Meyers, the question is, if they didn't have these constant cheerleaders, where would they be? And is it about freedom of speech, or is there any coordination? Does Jimmy Kimmel's staff, or his writers, or his producers, or the people at his network, do they coordinate in any way with Democratic operatives? You don't even need to coordinate with the Democratic Party. Do they coordinate with liaisons to write his monologues, his Trump derangement syndrome monologues every single night? Because, see, that's free campaign donations. Democrats have been getting billions in free airtime, not just from Jimmy Kimmel, from all of Hollywood. Billions of dollars, and hundreds of millions at least, in free advertising and publicity that amount to campaign contributions. If there's coordination, which I'm not accusing Jimmy Kimmel of, but it's very bizarre how every single day of his life is devoted to going after Trump. And we had 4 years of Biden, and Trump won again. That's also the part of the equation. If Biden or Harris if it was 8 years now of Democrats, you could say that the country just wants Democrats. We tried 4 years of Biden, didn't work. It was terrible. Then we went back to President Trump, thank God. Which tells you that everything Kimmel and others said was complete nonsense, pure propaganda. But let's continue.
But we begin tonight in the beautiful state of California. If you want a glimpse into what America would become if a radical Democrat wins the White House, pay very close attention. Despite what is a vast, stunning natural resources in California, great weather, beautiful geography, beautiful oceans, the Golden State has become totally unlivable for so many Americans. After years of Democratic one-party rule, Californians, look at these numbers. They are fleeing the state in droves, with the largest net migration in the entire country. It even recently...
And you'll probably have more people leaving New York after Mamdani, which says something on a national stage. I mean, Democrats are very good, some quite powerful within Virginia, within California, within New York, within Washington state, but not nationally. Definitely not nationally. During presidential elections, the average American does not want their state or their city to become, to have the hallmarks of a Democratic-run city or state.
Lost a congressional seat for the first time ever and is projected to lose at least 4 more seats by 2030. So let us be clear. The state's radical Democratic agenda, led by our old friend Gavin Newsom, is to blame for all of this. Unfortunately, that might be news to Gavin. His attention seems to be elsewhere, embarrassing himself, running for president. In fact, he's now so totally fixated and focused on doing whatever he can do to win his party's 2028 nomination. It's like he changes every single hour of every day. And frankly, it's getting hard to watch. Even morning liberal Joe agrees with me. Now, currently, he and his social media team, they are busy trying to mock President Trump on X by posting messages in all caps. He's trying to pretend to be Donald Trump.
That's another thing people don't understand. It's not about I didn't vote for President Trump because of his personality. This is a very weak argument from people who have Trump derangement syndrome. Oh, you voted Trump. He's your dear leader. Oh, it's a cult. No, actually, the cult of the Democratic Party. Because after Biden won his primary, he was then ousted. And then the same people who voted for Biden weren't upset. They voted for Harris. Why even have a primary? Ask Bernie Sanders. They cheated him in 2016. They did worse to Biden. That's not a political party. That has greater similarity to a cult than a political party, because they'll vote for anyone. If media says, hey, this person is the nominee, or the Democrats say, you know what, Biden won his primary, these 14 million plus Americans who are Democrats, they're not disenfranchised. They just have no say. We pretended that they have an actual voice in the Democratic Party, but we now want Harris because we don't like Biden's debate performance, because we hid and covered up the fact that the poor man had cognitive issues for about 4 years, which is exactly why President Trump said, and how did I lose to this man? But trying to pretend that you're Trump is not going to work. President Trump's communication style is unique. And the reason it is successful, the reason President Trump is successful is not because of any insults or his personality or orange hair or anything like that. The reason he's successful is because he stands for ending or stopping military or never-ending military conflict. That doesn't mean he's a pacifist. My God, there are people who are like, oh, Trump sent a missile. So I think that's terrible. I agree. But he's not a pacifist. He's an American president. Okay, you want to go after Trump. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But he's not a pacifist, but he's not Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld, Clinton, Kerry, Biden. So he's the least militant. He's the most anti-war president that we've had. And it's a moral imperative to have voted for him because of that. He wants to enforce immigration laws. The same immigration laws that Democrats passed. If Democrats don't like ICE, they should simply repeal deportation statutes. They don't want to do that. They just want to level vitriol against federal law enforcement. I thought we were supposed to respect federal law enforcement after January of 2021. And Democrats changed their tune so quickly. Okay. Suddenly, it's not a rebellion when all these people go after federal agencies or law enforcement. Anyway. So he stands for a completely new foreign policy, different from Clinton and Bush and Cheney and Rumsfeld and President Obama. Very different. He stands for enforcing immigration laws. And why do families need SNAP? Why is there poverty in the United States of America? Because of outsourcing. That is one of the biggest reasons for poverty in the United States of America. We had record low poverty since 1959, when poverty statistics were tabulated. In 2019, right before Democrats shut down economic activity in the most apoplectic reaction to a serious issue, hysterical apoplectic reaction as always to something serious, they shut down economic activity, and of course poverty increased. But we had record low poverty. We had record low poverty in 2019. Trump's policies were working. So he stands for tariffs, bringing home manufacturing jobs. Tariffs are leverage on the world stage to prevent outsourcing, to bring home manufacturing, to alleviate poverty. But again, this is too difficult for the morally superior. They'd rather have government-run grocery stores. So Newsom trying to pretend he's Trump is not doing anything. It's only bolstering the fact that Trump is actually genuine. Trump is the most genuine president we've ever had. If the rebuttal is, oh my God, that's nonsense, the person doesn't really understand who Trump is and actually doesn't understand, who Newsom and Democrats, the Democratic Party is. But anyway, let's continue.
Gavin is also attacking Fox News hosts. He's trying to bait conservatives into social media fights. He's actually referred to our own Tomi Lahren's account as Yelp for toilets. Gee, very clever and funny. She'll join us in a moment to respond. Gavin, look, I know Gavin. In person, he can be a very likable guy. I know he's slick. I got it. I've got his number. But unfortunately, it is his radical policies. That's where the disaster is for him. Pretending to be President Trump is not only embarrassing, it will not negate the disastrous policies and positions and the horrible state that California is in. Now, that includes Gavin's campaign to woo conservatives. First, he was going to be a podcaster and interview Steve Bannon and Charlie Kirk. That didn't work out after he got caught, of course, in an embarrassing lie, actually one after another. Take a look.
The Latinx stuff that, by the way, not one person ever in my office has ever used the word Latinx.
So can we finally put that to bed?
Yeah,
we agree.
But where did that even
No more Latinx, everybody.
Well, I just didn't even know where.
God bless Charlie Kirk's soul. This man was about speaking and dialogue and discourse and debate. God bless his soul. The world is worse off without Charlie Kirk because he spoke, he debated, he communicated, he sat down. It doesn't matter if you dislike his views or find his views terrible, horrible. It doesn't matter what anyone's opinion of who he was as a human being. He wanted to speak and talk. This is the foundation of democracy and the republic and the Constitution that we care so much, that Democrats care so much about. But you had Democrats and liberals and wonderful progressives and morally superior people celebrating the murder of this man. God bless his soul. Americans, people should speak and debate and have dialogue and discourse. And if you find someone's views reprehensible, you don't celebrate their death. You simply talk and debate and explain why Charlie Kirk or Trump are wrong. You don't yell and ruin Thanksgiving dinner and disown friends and family and hurt people or key Teslas. Charlie Kirk lost his life speaking, sitting and speaking to college students. What a microcosm of American politics. Democrats celebrated the death of a man who was speaking, sitting down and speaking. And it's just unbelievable how, Newsom here is caught in a lie right here, but it's like discourse, the morally superior liberal Democrats and progressives oftentimes do not like discourse, because if they actually had to defend their ideas using the English language, using definitions of words that existed before 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, they would lose oftentimes the debate, which is what took place with Charlie Kirk. Almost always he won the debate, or it was an agree to disagree moment. Can't have that with a modern Democratic Party.
Where it came from and what are people talking about? I hope we can really paint a picture in terms of our consciousness of how impactful this has been.
Upcountry Mornings, thank you for being a member. Thank you for the kind words. To my members, thank you. To the Super Chat, thank you.
Been on the Latinx community. About 3/4 of renters in the state that have fallen behind in rent represented in the Latino and African American community, the Latinx and Black communities. You've got politicians.
I know a great many Hispanic and Latino Americans, the most beautiful, wonderful, amazing people. Okay, I know a great many. And I've never heard that phrase with the X ever. But let's continue.
That are banning not assault rifles, but the word Latinx. They're not even serious.
The body scanner reveals the brutal.
And it gets worse from there. Now, Gavin, you're not going to listen to me, but maybe you'll consider focusing on your day job.
That's the thing, really quickly. They say, like, oh, wait, what's the definition of woke? You don't even know what it is. Oh, really? You don't like it? We don't. It's a pseudo-morality based upon an ever-changing view of morality that is linked to, like, words that are just made up because they have some kind of place in modern U.S. history. It's like, it's a very bizarre political, it's a bizarre atheistic political religion based upon the creation of new words. So what's the definition of woke? Okay. It's a modern political religion. It's an atheistic political religion based upon the creation of new words to intimidate any opposition to far left or liberal or progressive ideas that might not make any sense if they were justified using language that existed before 2017, 2018, 2019. That's just one possible interpretation or definition. Again, don't take my word for it. I'm just, this is all like, complete nonsense. Let's just continue.
Maybe help end crime, homelessness, lower taxes. People in your state are way overtaxed. Help the people in the Pacific Palisades rebuild. Maybe have some water in the hydrants and the reservoir. Sadly, everything for Newsom is just a political stunt or a political game. His end goal is he thinks this might make him president. He's more Trump-like, but he's not Trump. It's not making life better for people in California. A huge political miscalculation, but Gavin doesn't listen to me. His views as governor have changed year after year based on polling and trends. His views will also change during any Democratic primary. If nominated, his views will likely change yet again during a general election, but his record will forever haunt him. The country will be faced with the question, if he's the nominee, do you want America to become California? He just spent, the last several weeks bashing President Trump over the Texas redistricting fight while threatening to gerrymander his own state even more. Not that there's much left to gerrymander. Of course, this very public political battle doesn't help the people of California at all. It doesn't even help the Democratic Party. Helps nobody. It hurts Gavin Newsom. It's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for him. But Gavin Newsom doesn't care. His sole focus appears to be his own political career on the national stage. Now, if you want to have a new job, what's the best way to get a promotion? Simple. Be great at your current job. And the really sad part is now California is getting left in the dust. When you cut through all the clutter and all the gimmicks and all the performative stunts and all the transformations, Gavin the podcaster, Gavin acting like Trump, this is Newsom's record. That will be at the heart of any campaign he runs in the future, should he ever run. Anyway, assuming he does run for president. Let's start with something he's really sensitive about, and that is his many failures surrounding horrific wildfires in Southern California. After all, shouldn't the buck stop with the governor? On January 7th, firefighters, they showed up to protect their communities bravely, only to discover that there was no water. The state's water supply had been totally mismanaged. A key reservoir was empty. Critical fire hydrants were non-operational, no water in them. As a result, entire neighborhoods burned to the ground.
There's no rebuttal to how inept this was. And if the issue is, it was offline and it was being repaired, the reservoir was being repaired, if insurance companies knew before all of this took place and were denying coverage before all of this took place, and there's a problem with the environment and, the planet, which we won't go into, that things are changing because of man and, our behavior on this earth. then why was everyone caught off guard? Weren't the experts supposed to be intelligent? Weren't the experts supposed to be able to predict these types of things, especially when it came to the environment? And why didn't they? I mean, I'm speaking in roundabout terms and not using certain words because of, the algorithm been traumatized for the past couple of years. But why didn't they predict this, all the wonderful experts and morally superior among us?
All the way to the ocean. Look at this disaster. And according to the LA Times, nearly 13,000 households were displaced from the sky. All you could see was block after block after block. Look at this disaster of charred rubble. And remember, wildfires, Santa Ana winds, California. I did live in Southern California for 5 years. All of it is predictable, a predictable event. You can prepare for that. And here's where things get much worse.
It is predictable in that state and other states. You know that there are certain there's a time when hurricanes take place. There are moments throughout the year. Wherever you live in the United States or even in the world, you know to prepare for certain weather and the consequences of that weather. You understand it. Why wasn't the city prepared? Why wasn't the state prepared? And you had, reservoirs not like completely empty. There's no rebuttal to that. Okay, and I've read forums, this is the right wing, the discussion of things. It's not right or left. If the reservoirs were built for a specific purpose, to prevent the calamity that took place. And the issue is that this is an example of such unmitigated either incompetence or corruption, or maybe a combination of both. And on a national stage, so if Newsom runs for president, this is going to be a catastrophe, probably worse than even the campaign, money, the fraud that, his chief of staff was indicted for. But this is the type of thing on a national stage when people ask, well, why wasn't a reservoir filled near the Palisades? Why not? What was the purpose of it being built was to prevent the calamity, the catastrophe that took place. Simply saying, well, it was offline, it was being repaired. That's not a rebuttal.
The thousands and thousands of homes that were burned to the ground, only 145 successfully receiving permits to rebuild more than 7 months later. And this is just the process to begin construction, not even rebuilding your home. According to one developer, quote, building a house in LA can mean filing paperwork with a half a dozen or more government agencies. Most homeowners haven't even been able to start this process because 7 months after the fire, California officials have yet to finalize all the rules and regulations surrounding rebuilding efforts. And anyway, here is more of Gavin's record. And if you want America to be California, then guess what? This is what America would look like if a
And when they shut down the state, when blue states shut down their states in the most hysterical and apoplectic manner, the homeless population skyrocketed. And it affected everybody. Like, there were people who had businesses, who had dreams, who were studying to be a profession, all of that. There were professional boxers, there were athletes, everyone had their life upended. Why? The shutting down of the economy of especially the blue states, did it gleefully. You couldn't even go to the beach. Think about that without talking too much about the intricacies. You couldn't even go to the beach. Does that make any sense at all? Does that make any sense at all? It was complete hysteria. And this was a time when the trust and safety team of Twitter would silence anyone who disagreed. The FBI was working with the trust and safety team at Twitter at that time. The censorship was unbelievable. The zeitgeist was like this kind of it was a hysteria. There was a counter of people who lost their lives on CNN, like a stock counter. I mean, you had people you still have people, I mean, you know who they're voting for. You still have people in cars wearing you know what. In the car! 5 years later, wearing you. Does it make any sense? And then you have the homeless issue, which they just do nothing about. I mean, you've seen this for 5, 6, 7, 8 years getting worse and worse. Newsom saw what is being done. And you look at the difference between Florida and California. Both beautiful states. I mean, California is beautiful. The food, oh my God, it's amazing. The weather is just unbelievable. Aside from, certain catastrophes. I mean, every state had. But, I mean, Florida also, beautiful, amazing state. But how do you take California, the most amazing, wonderful place with so many God-given, weather, just terrain, everything's beautiful. And how do you make it into a place where people leave? The affordability crisis in California. I read one stat, if you add inflation, it's the highest poverty rate. Adjusted for inflation, it's the highest poverty rate.
Radical Democrat is elected as governor of California. He is home to has the largest homeless population in the entire country, far worse, for example, than my free state of Florida, both in terms of sheer numbers and per capita. In every major city across the state, sidewalks, they're lined with tents, open air drug use, public defecation, urination. Look at your screen. Right on this program during his debate with Gavin Newsom, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Remember, he pulled out that San Francisco poop map, charting out all of the sightings of human waste in the city, in the streets. As you can see, the map is almost all brown. Now, this is a massive failure from a state that collects more taxes than any.
I mean, that type of map, did you ever think that was even possible in America?
The other state in the country. Look at your screen, comparing California's tax rates, the income tax rate. It is the highest in the country. Sales tax rate, also the highest in the country. Corporate tax rate, the 6th highest in the country. The state's gas tax is by far the highest in the country, and it just went up again in 2025. Now, instead of solving these real problems, improving the state of California as governor, he's choosing to spend his days doing a ridiculous, inauthentic, cheap imitation of President Trump without success after failing as a podcaster who wants to get along with conservatives. And meanwhile, California's violent crime rate is way above the national average, more than double the rate in my free state of Florida. So where are all the Golden State's tax dollars going? Here's just one egregious example. Take a look.
We have an actual number of illegal immigrant health care that the state taxpayers are covering in this year's budget.
Guadalupe Manriquez with the California Department of Finance. So in the current year, to cover undocumented individuals in Medi-Cal, we're spending $9.5 billion total funds.
So it's not the $6 billion that people continue to talk about in the media. It's $9.5 billion.
It was a Budget Act number. This is a revised number based on the governor's budget updated estimates.
Now, the governor has been luring unvetted illegal immigrants.
So $9.5 billion. And Democrats should just own up to it. If you think it's moral, and there is a moral argument, then just say the $9.5 billion is worth it. But they just lie. They don't. I think that tax dollars have to go. And undocumented immigrants are beautiful, amazing people by and large. 99.9% beautiful, amazing people. If you have a criminal background, can't become a citizen of any country. Okay. And again, if you're, that's that obvious. President Trump is right about those things, but the Democrats don't accept it. You could play that back. They don't say, okay, yes, the $9.5 billion allocated in California for undocumented immigrants is moral and just, and American citizens should pay for it. Just roll with it and defend it. This is what I can't stand about Democrats. They don't have functioning primaries, yet they pretend to have primaries. Just say, well, we don't really have functioning primaries. We just pick anybody we want after people vote. Yeah, it's good. Just say $9.5 billion is allocated for people who are not citizens, and this is moral and just. Defend it. Don't circumvent. That's what happened with Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk made very idealistic young people defend far-left ideology. It didn't sound good. They call that hatred. But it's their own views. And that's, I mean, God bless his soul. That's what he did. That's what put his life at risk. All Charlie Kirk ever did was say, explain your vantage point. And oftentimes the vantage point was so absurd that it was then twisted and, oh my God, he's trying to mock us. But he wasn't doing that at all. He was giving people a forum to explain their viewpoint.
To his sanctuary state for years with protections, generous handouts. And why doesn't California keep statistics of illegal immigrant crime in that state? How many innocent Californians have been murdered and raped and victims of violent crime because of these insane aid and abetting policies? And in case you're wondering, California, the highest tax state in the country, is now facing a $10+ billion budget deficit. How's that possible? So, Gavin, keep playing make-believe Donald Trump and let your state suffer. And sadly, we see the same thing in almost every other deep blue state. Americans, they've had enough. Look at the New York Times report. Quote, the Democratic Party faces a voter registration crisis. The party is bleeding support beyond the ballot box. A new analysis shows, look at the graph, in all red, blue states and battleground states, the Democratic Party is losing registered supporters dramatically between 20 and 24. They lost 2.1 million voters. Republicans gained 2.4 million for a net gain of 4.5 million Republicans. So in my humble, advice to Gavin, he won't listen to me. He used to like me. Not sure what happened. I have a point. Results matter. A new performative.
Yeah, but people have been indoctrinated by going to bed at night, listening to Jimmy Kimmel, waking up in the morning, watching the ladies at The View, preach and condemn and, yell at the top of their lungs about how terrible Trump is. They read the New York Times, the Washington Post, and they think this is reality. Reality is that Trump is a Russian operative who fomented a rebellion and who despises everyone and wanted to sell the country to Martians. It's indoctrination. That's why they disown friends and family. Okay, the average Trump supporter doesn't say, I'm not talking to you anymore because you voted Biden or Harris or Clinton. I don't care. Why would I care if somebody that I knew voted for Clinton or Harris? I don't care at all. It's the morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrat that is, has convinced themselves, unfortunately, not all, but a great many, that they're so right. That's why you had that candidate in Virginia who won. Unbelievable. He texted that he wanted to end the lives of his opponent's family. And the warped and twisted and absurd, completely illogical and irrational logic or lack of logic is that the Republican has to experience the consequences of a firearm, and then there will, only once they, God forbid, suffer an unimaginable act, will they then realize that banning all firearms is good and would protect them. This is the completely twisted ideology. It's like you could do that also with the Republican vantage point. You could say, only when Democrats are denied the ability to defend themselves and then experience the repercussions of a madman who broke the law to obtain a weapon, will then do they realize that concealed carry is important. You can do that same thing. And it's narcissism. It's, if you don't agree with me, you must suffer. If you don't agree, you must suffer and then realize how right I am. It's like, imagine living with somebody like that, where you disagree and it's like, imagine. But anyway, let's continue.
Confrontational style, maybe it wins you points with the loony radical base in your party, but America is not going to vote for that record. It's not going to fix the very real exodus from your state and from other Democratic states. And maybe you should focus on making people's lives better in your state. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey.
So again, Newsom could become the nominee, which would be an immediate victory for J.D. Vance. I don't see anyone that they have that has a chance on a national stage. But Newsom cannot pretend to be Trump. This is like when the Democrats say, "Oh, we have to find our own Joe Rogan." It's like, well, Joe Rogan is successful and unique because he really doesn't, for a long time, he really didn't want Trump. And then finally he said, yeah, I'm going to have Trump over Harris. But he's not. The thing that makes Joe Rogan or any person successful is that they're unique. They don't just fall in line in lockstep with a political ideology. Watch a John Hughes movie from the 80s. It's like the person, the individual, the cool crowd in the 80s movies. And then there's the individual who says, I'm not part of you, man. I'm just going to be myself. And, I have to suffer the consequences, but I'll be myself. And then, that person wins in the end, or that she wins in the end. And it's like the Democrats fall in lockstep. And so they can't have a Joe Rogan. They can't have their own, independent type of voice. Because if somebody deviates away from the liberal viewpoint or ideology or progressive ideology, they're a heretic. That's why it's an atheistic political religion. 5 years ago, if you deviated any way, you were like a monster. Jimmy Kimmel alluded to the fact that your demise was justified. I mean, that's the thing with you deviate from the Democratic Party, it's game, set, match, over. You're excommunicated. You're a heretic. You've committed blasphemy. You should never have been born. So they'll never have a Joe Rogan of their own because Joe Rogan can't be really pigeonholed into one specific view. He's a human being like we all are, and we like certain things just like other things, and we have our own thoughts. But if you vote Democrat, it's like, that's why you have these people. I can go on forever. Anyway, let's continue.
Okay, next topic. California Governor Gavin Newsom tries to channel President Trump with this tweet storm this week. He writes, the maps will end your presidency, retake Congress for the people, and expose your rigged little game. My perfect maps are more beautiful than anything in Trump Tower, which many say smells weird. Is he pulling it off?
Has anybody asked Gavin Newsom, there's not one house rebuilt after the Pacific Palisades fire. Not one house. I talked to people there, Malibu, nothing. They can't get the permits. Donald Trump told Gavin Newsom to clean your forests and there will be no fires. Gavin Newsom laughed then. The LA almost burned down, and now he has the gall to go after President Trump. You know what? He's making himself more irrelevant, especially now with Donald Trump just really showing up and bringing this golden age of America. And Newsom can't stand it. He's got to step back. He's irrelevant. He'll never register in the 2028 election.
He has time to cosplay as Donald Trump on social media, but doesn't fix the Palisades. Amazing. Okay, now to this. Struggling city-owned Missouri grocery store, similar to what Zohran Mamdani wants here in New York City, officially shuts its doors. Sign on the door says, unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances beyond our control, we are no longer at this time able to serve the residents of this important community. The unforeseen circumstances is called, I think, socialism. The shelves were bare, everything was getting stolen, and newsflash, it didn't work.
It's amazing that he even approaches it this way. I call this guy a Zoltar. Like, remember the movie, the Tom Hanks movie? Big, that little, that character. This is Zoltar trying to run New York. Right. And we plead with the New Yorkers, please stop, think what you're doing, because I talk to guys on my radio show on AM 970. They go, oh, we're going to vote for the guy. And some of them are Jewish Americans. I said, what are they thinking? So it's important to note, this is something clearly that Mamdani wants to do that has failed miserably in Kansas, and it will fail miserably in New York City.
I love Joe Piscopo, and he's 100% right. I love Joe Piscopo. Let's continue. So this is what will take place. So with Prop 50, that also won't work. You can't always just try to pretend you're Trump, pretend you're Republicans. You have to stand for something. The Democratic Party doesn't really stand for anything but opposing Trump. or trying to somehow be like him. But check it out.
Governor, great to have you here. Thank you so much. How would you take these Democrat districts out of your state?
So first of all, one reason why this even exists is because of the gross gerrymandering that's already been done by California, Illinois, New York, Massachusetts, and so many Democrat states. What Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, is threatening, and that is if Texas goes through with redistricting that eliminates 5 Democrat seats and aligns our congressional delegation with the values of the state of Texas, he says that he will work toward eliminating 5 Republican seats in California. And I'm saying that if he tries to do that, we have the capability, using the same strategy that they're using in California, to eliminate in Texas not just 5 seats of Democrats, but in fact 10 seats of Democrats. Yeah. And so here's what we know to oversimplify this, and that is before Texas is working.
So Texas can get more seats than California can get Republican. Texas can do away with every Democratic seat. And get 10 Republican seats, something along those lines. I think he mentioned that. Whereas Democrats can only add 5 more seats in California with Prop 50. So you're still going to get 5 more Republican seats, even if Democrats do that in California. Okay, but the issue here is, what does the Democratic Party stand for on a national stage? What's their foreign policy? Nobody knows. We know Trump's foreign policy is a limited military, generally an anti-war foreign policy. If he launches a missile, yes, it's bad, but it's not Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld, or Clinton, Kerry, Biden. So you know what President Trump stands for in terms of foreign policy. You know what he stands for in terms of immigration policy. You know what he stands for in terms of economic policy, tariffs. What do Democrats stand for? Nobody knows. Nobody knows on a national stage. Well, what do they stand for? Opposing Trump. Well, it didn't work. He's president, thank God. And that's the problem, too. It's like they don't really run. They don't like ICE, but then they don't run on repealing deportation statutes. You can repeal the deportation statute. And they don't want to do that. Anyway, this is a huge story. And it could really stop and prevent it could prevent Newsom's campaign, or really hurt Newsom's campaign going forward. Okay, so you had natural disasters in California. God bless the people affected. And in many ways, it was because of incompetence or corruption. Okay, you can't have reservoirs that aren't full of water. That's what a reservoir is for, to prevent the reservoir near the Pacific Palisades was built there to prevent that catastrophe from taking place. Okay, but now you have this corruption probe, and it's this is not Trump Russia where they made something up. And we'll do more. I mean, Brennan's going to be indicted. John Brennan's going to be indicted very soon. So we'll do obviously more on that tomorrow. But this is the Democrats have nobody. Newsom is, let's say, the front runner. But he has no chance on a national stage because he doesn't really stand for anything. We don't really know we know what Trump stands for in terms of the economy, tariffs, in terms of immigration, enforce it, in terms of foreign policy, limited military, more of an anti-war foreign policy. We don't know what Democrats stand for. We have no clue. On a national stage, we have no clue. And again, in Virginia, they have a powerful Democratic Party, but Virginia went for Trump. So anyway, hit subscribe to this channel. God bless you all. Go to H.A. Goodwin's other channel right now. Hit subscribe there as well as here. If you're new, thank you. If you've been here for a long time, God bless you. Love you. And if